I still remember the sound of their laughter echoing through the courtyard, sharp, mocking, and full of pity. My cousin's wedding was supposed to be a celebration, but to them, it was another chance to remind me how small I was compared to them. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my cheap suit clinging to my back in the heat, watching as my relatives whispered behind their hands. "Look who showed up," one of my aunts muttered, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "He couldn't even afford a gift, but he still came." Another laughed. "Maybe he came for the free food." They thought I couldn't hear, but I did, and it stung. But what none of them knew was that just behind those hills, a helicopter was waiting my helicopter. Tell me, would you have done what I did after being humiliated like that? To understand how I ended up in that moment, we have to go back a few years to a time when I had nothing. My name is Armin, and I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. My family wasn't poor, but we weren't rich either. My father worked long hours at a small auto workshop, and my mother sold homemade food to make ends meet. My cousins, on the other hand, were born into money. My uncle owned a chain of textile stores, and his children grew up wearing designer clothes and going to private schools while I studied under a flickering tube light with second-hand books. They never let me forget it. As kids, they'd make jokes about my torn shoes or my simple lunch. "Armin, why don't you ask Santa for a new backpack?" My cousin Sod once sneered in front of everyone. Back then, I used to smile it off, pretending it didn't hurt, but it did. Every insult, every whisper, every look that said you don't belong here. It built something inside me. Not hate, not exactly, more like fuel, a silent promise that one day I'd walk into a room and they'd have no choice but to look up to me. Life moved on. After school, I got a small scholarship to study engineering in the city. My relatives mocked that too. "Engineering, you'll just end up fixing air conditioners," Sod laughed. And maybe he wasn't entirely wrong. My first job was fixing machines. I spent 3 years working for a company that treated me like I was invisible, but I kept learning. Every night while my coworkers went home, I stayed late, studying everything I could about renewable energy systems and aviation mechanics. I didn't have much, but I had vision and hunger. In 2018, something changed. A foreign investor visited the company to inspect a project I'd been secretly improving in my own time, a new, cost-efficient drone turbine design. When they realized I had created the prototype almost single-handedly, they offered to buy the patent. I was stunned. The deal wasn't massive by corporate standards, but for me it was life, changing enough money to start my own small research company. Over the next few years, I poured everything into my work. Late nights, endless failures, betrayal from a few partners, I saw it all. But each time I fell, I got back up stronger. By 2024, my company had signed contracts with several private aviation firms. I wasn't just Armin, the poor cousin, anymore. I was CEO of Skylink Dynamics, a name that meant something in the tech world. I bought my parents a new house, cleared every loan we'd ever had, and built a life that finally felt like mine. And then came the wedding invitation. It was from my uncle, the same uncle who used to call my father the mechanic. He wrote, "We'd love to have you join the family on this special day." I almost laughed when I read it. I knew what this was. It wasn't a genuine invitation. It was a chance for them to parade their wealth and success. Again. But this time, things were different. I wasn't coming as the quiet, broke cousin anymore. I was coming as someone they had once underestimated, and I was ready to let them see exactly what that meant. I didn't plan to humiliate anyone. That wasn't my goal. I just wanted to show up, silently, confidently, and let my success speak for itself. I booked a flight to my hometown and arranged for a friend to pick me up at the airport. But as I was finalizing my trip, my business partner, Jonas, called me with a grin in his voice. "Hey, Armin, you know that test helicopter we finished last month? The one with your name on the design patent," he said. "It's flight, ready. Why don't you take her for a spin this weekend?" That's when it hit me. What if instead of arriving in a car, I flew in? It wasn't about showing off, at least that's what I told myself at first. It was symbolic, a way to remind them that the boy they once laughed at could literally soar above them now. So I made the arrangements quietly. I told no one in my family. I just sent my assistant ahead of time to coordinate a landing area near the wedding venue, an open field right behind the main lawn. When the day came, I wore a classic black suit, tailored, subtle, elegant, nothing flashy. I arrived early at a nearby hotel to prepare, while the wedding buzzed with music and laughter. My cousin Saud, the groom, was surrounded by guests, laughing loudly, his wrist glinting with a Rolex. I watched from a distance as my uncle bragged about the expensive decor, the imported flowers, the foreign, reigned caterers. It was everything I expected. When I finally walked in, the music dimmed slightly. For a second there was silence, then the whispers began. "Is that Armin?" Someone said. "He looks different." But the tone shifted quickly to sarcasm. One of my aunts smiled too sweetly. "Oh, Armin, you came. It must have been hard to get time off from your little job." I smiled politely. "It's not so little anymore, Auntie." She laughed, assuming I was joking. At dinner, I sat quietly at one of the side tables, watching everyone toast and celebrate. My uncle barely acknowledged me, too busy showing off his new car keys. I could hear Saud telling his friends how Armin's still trying to make something of himself. I clenched my jaw but stayed calm. They didn't know, not yet. Then the moment came. As the night settled and the music picked up, the sky behind the lawn began to rumble, a deep, rhythmic thudding sound that grew louder and louder. At first, people thought it was thunder. Then someone pointed to the horizon. "Wait, is that a helicopter?" Everyone turned, shielding their eyes as the lights flashed across the open field. The helicopter descended smoothly, its rotors cutting through the night air like thunder. Guests began murmuring, confused, curious, excited. "Whose helicopter is that?" Someone shouted. My uncle looked annoyed, thinking it was some disruption. Then the side door opened, and I stepped out. The air hit my face warm, electric, alive. My jacket fluttered in the downdraft as I walked across the field toward the wedding lawn. The murmurs turned into gasps. I could hear someone say, "That's Armand." My uncle's mouth hung open. Saud dropped his drink. Cameras came up, flashes went off. I smiled, calm and composed. My assistant followed behind, carrying a small gift box. I walked straight up to my uncle and said, "I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic was crazy in the air tonight." For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then someone, I think it was my aunt, let out a nervous laugh. Inside the box was a wedding gift, a check for a substantial amount, but that wasn't the point. The point was the moment, the shift in energy. The same people who once mocked me now stood silent, unsure whether to clap or hide. My uncle stammered, "Armin, is this really?" I nodded. "Yes, uncle. I run Skylink Dynamics now. We make these." I said, gesturing toward the helicopter. It was poetic. Years of humiliation turned into a single moment of grace. I didn't yell, didn't gloat. I simply smiled, congratulated the couple, and joined my parents at their table. My mother's eyes were teary, proud. My father squeezed my shoulder without saying a word. He didn't have to. So that's the situation I was in, standing in front of the same people who once laughed at me, now speechless as my helicopter sat glowing behind them. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a second and tell me, what would you have done if you were me? Would you have shown them your success like that, or would you have stayed humble and silent? The rest of the evening was surreal. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to me. Cousins who once ignored my messages were asking about investments, jobs, advice. Saud came over, trying to act casual. "Bro, that's crazy, man. You're flying helicopters now," he said with an awkward laugh. I could tell he was embarrassed. I smiled, "Yeah. Remember when you said I'd end up fixing air conditioners? Turns out, I fix engines that fly now." His smile faded a little. "Hey, I was just joking back then." I shrugged, "Yeah, me too." The bride my new cousin. in-law came up to thank me for coming. She whispered, "I've never seen Sod this quiet before." We both laughed softly. My uncle eventually came to sit with me, trying to make small talk. "You've done well, Armin. Really proud of you," he said, his tone unsteady. "You should visit more often." I nodded, but I knew it wasn't pride, it was guilt. When the night ended, I walked back to the helicopter with my parents. The crowd followed us, still buzzing with disbelief. As the blades started to spin again, I looked out at their faces, the same ones that had once looked down on me, now staring up in awe. I waved goodbye, lifted off, and watched the wedding lights shrink beneath us until they looked like stars scattered across the ground. In that moment, I didn't feel angry or vindictive. I felt free, free from the weight of their opinions, from years of being the family's punchline. Success didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like peace. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of messages. Photos, videos, even memes of my entrance had gone viral among the extended family. Some people praised me, others called me arrogant. But for once, it didn't matter. I didn't do it for them. I did it for the boy I used to be, the one who sat alone in school while everyone else laughed at his torn shoes. Sometimes life gives you moments to reclaim your story. That night was mine. So if you ever find yourself in a place where people laugh at your dreams, remember this: you don't have to explain yourself. Just keep building, keep grinding, and one day, your success will make the noise for you. Like this video if you were on my side, and subscribe for more real-life stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, was I wrong to make that entrance? Or did they deserve to see what they once called impossible? I'll see you all in the next story.